Okay, yeah, I'm just having a little hard time hearing you all.
Okay, we're going to start our meeting right now, and hopefully you can hear us. Okay, we'll try to speak up for you. Is this better?
Yeah, that's better. Yes, thank you.
All right, so it's 4:01, and we will start on July 8th, and we'll start the facilities committee meeting here today. And so I would probably just turn over to Steve Lawrence and to follow us through here. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Penny, as you and I have talked, we want to do just an introductory meeting with our facilities committee. And I'll go around the room and let everyone get an idea of who to. And we'll start with Jennifer Pickman.
Hi, Penny. Hi, Spencer. My name is Jennifer Pickman. I'm a member of the Facilities Committee meeting with the Port Authority. Good to meet you.
Great. Hi. And what was your name again? I'm sorry. There's just a lot of feedback. It's very difficult to hear.
That's okay. It's Jennifer.
Jennifer. Okay, great. Thanks, Jennifer. Can you hear us all right?
Yeah, we hear you great.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Sam Burns, chair of the board.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And I'm David King, board member as well.
Okay.
I'm Patty Nisco. I'm the chief financial officer for the Ogden Preferred Bridge and Port Authority.
Steve Lawrence, I'm the executive director.
Stephanie Sorrento, I'm the airport manager.
Great. Nice to meet you all. I'm Penny Perkins from Stephen Baldwin Associates. And Spencer?
Or as I'm mute there, I'm Spencer Gillette from Stephen Baldwin Associates, and I'm a project manager with the firm.
Oh, that's better. Now we can see everybody. Yes, some people were cut off. That's great.
Well, after a year, we still haven't got it down right with all these video conferences. Penny, could you begin, just give a summary of what Stephen Baldwin Associates brings to the Bridge and Port? Just at a high level, just so we can introduce the facilities committee members to what you do.
Sure, absolutely. So we are a boutique airport management consultant firm. We specialize in working directly with airport owners and operators in realms of management, strategic planning, financial review, and a variety of specialty areas such as governance, air service development, salary review, HR recruiting, etc. But we are specifically at the sort of management and strategic level to help airports run, more efficiently, safer, and more effectively. So it's kind of the high level view.
Great. Thank you. Penny, also just to let you know, you sent me that the agenda is there, kind of a template of an agenda for a kickoff meeting. I've kind of revised that, and I'll send that to you and Spencer. It just some of the names have been added or changed, but I kind of like what you have there. It's something that we can schedule for possibly later in the month.
Sure.
To get into more detail and you get a better understanding of what things look like up here and what we do.
Yeah, no, that would be great. So, we'd love to come and have a site visit. And of course, the draft that I sent you is, is an outline, a template. And of course, we would, make it more specific to, your specific airport and circumstances. So that'd be great.
You and I can talk about that in a little more detail, I would guess. Stephanie sent me a number of things that you asked for, not everything that you asked for in that. Have you had a chance to look at some of the things that we sent you, and did that help you in any way get a better feel for what the airport, where we are with the airport?
Yeah, no, we received that. Both Spencer and I reviewed those materials beforehand. You know, the list of some of the questions we had asked, and the marketing plan, and the employment numbers that you sent. So yeah, we did look at that, and definitely that helps us start to, you know, create a picture. And you know, when we have our on-site meeting, you know, we'll be able hopefully to dig into that deeper and ask you, you know, more questions about those materials.
Okay, I guess, yeah, this is kind of an introductory thing. So, like I said, the facilities committee people may have some questions about, what you do or what you can do for us. And, you know, I know with myself, you know, I have like basic questions there. So, you know, I haven't really had time to introduce them to everything you do. So I would like to let them have the floor here and maybe throw some questions your way that will help get a better idea of where we're moving forward.
Sure, absolutely.
Sure, I'll jump in. And again, please forgive the level of my questioning. I'm really a beginner in all things airport, so I'm learning. I'm just wondering if Stephen Baldwin Associates is going to in any way address like the general aviation side of things, for instance, like cargo, you know, FedEx, that sort of thing, or is it strictly the commercial side?
No, absolutely. We have background in both, absolutely. And we deal with airports that are only GA airports. So for instance, we're working with Battle Creek, Michigan right now. That is only GA, no commercial service. We work with the MAC, Minneapolis-St. Paul. And so we've worked with them enterprise-wide, but just recently we completed a deep analysis of just their GA system. So we're very familiar with GA airports, and we absolutely can help you in those areas too. To some of the typical things that we do, you know, I don't know, Spencer, if you want to talk about this, that's some of the analysis that you do, but you know, we look at hangar rates and lease terms, you know, et cetera. Do you want to, some of the things that you did for MAC, Spencer?
Yeah, so for the MAC specifically, you know, it's a large system of airports. So we looked at that system as a whole, but we also looked outside of that, and we do that for a number of our clients. We'll do benchmarking initiatives, so that way we are comparing your airport against other airports that are comparable, and taking that information and providing recommendations as like a very simple summary of what we do.
Mm-hmm. So we can compare fuel rates, hangar rates, FBO services, you know, those sorts of things, and also staffing allocation. That was a big issue at the MAC. You know, as Spencer said, that's 6 GA airports that serve as reliever airports to the, you know, MSP itself. But yeah, we often like to look at the airport strategically and encompass all of it, so that we can give you ideas for revenue. Air service development absolutely is a key area of revenue generation, but there are many others, right? So from landing fees to hangar rates to non-aeronautical development of property. So we like to look at the airport as a whole and help you solve, you know, whatever issues you're having, whatever goals you want to achieve, to look at it holistically.
I have one more question. Okay, so again, I'm not sure, I don't want to ask any questions that are out of line. I just don't really know who this would fall under, but like when you come in and you start working at the Ogdensburg Airport, do you take like baseline data? Like, do you do your own data collection? Like, for instance, you start with baseline and then tracking all of the tracking of data, increase in passenger employment, all of that sort of thing, or is that on like Stephanie's end? Do you both collect, or is there, you know, is there intangible types of things that only you would track that we wouldn't, that you would report Stephanie on?
It depends, yeah. It depends. Usually we rely on the airport we look at whatever data you have tracked. So, you know, rates and charges over the year, your current rates and charges, your emplanements. I mean, that's, you know, absolutely a number that we would look at, especially in terms of air service development. And we do have our own databases from the benchmark comparisons that Spencer was mentioning, you know, of other airports that we have already surveyed and canvassed to get, you know, their rates for the various charges. So we do have a lot of that data on hand. The thing is that, you know, it's more useful to you that we find a pool of airports that are peers or slightly aspirational, right? So, you know, so it wouldn't help to compare your GA facilities with, say, you know, a larger GA facility in California. So we would look for, you know, equivalencies basically. And some of those we may have, or some of those we may have to go out and approach those airports and ask them to participate.
Thank you.
Sure, I hope that helps.
I would add to that too. You know, sometimes during our research with any of our airports that we're working with, there might be things we find that aren't tracked today, but we might suggest tracking in the future, which will then help later on down the road with really analyzing information on whatever it might be, and sometimes information that's useful to people you're trying to attract in the future.
Yeah, that's a great point, Spencer. And that's probably one of the first questions we would ask, you know, at an official, you know, on-site kickoff meeting. What sorts of data are you tracking now? You know, and how do you use that data now? So, you know, we want to get some of that, the baseline information just to figure out who you are and how you do things, because all airports keep records differently. So, you know, we need to get familiar with yours. Yeah.
Thank you.
So have you worked with small airports before, like ours?
Absolutely. So we worked with St. Cloud in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, I'm sorry, which is about an hour and 20 minutes drive from MSP. So they were mostly a GA airport. They did have some charter service, right? And then they eventually got some commercial service. Again, some Allegiant flights to Florida a couple times a week and to Arizona. And we did a comprehensive organizational review for them, and they're a small airport, and we also worked in our service development with them as well, and did analysis and provided a report with them in conjunction with our partners working on that.
So are you somewhat familiar with airports located along the border? Because for us, that's pretty important.
Right, yeah. Spencer, did you want to say something?
We haven't directly worked with any airports as near to the border as yours, but we're very familiar with the model of your airport. And after reviewing some information that you provided, I can definitely see how in the past year it has presented a lot of challenges for you and the market strategy. So that's something we'll definitely be looking into in more detail as we go through this.
Yeah, because our marketing area is not just northern New York, it's southeastern Ontario and western Quebec. So that's kind of unique. And, you know, not only location-wise, but we're also talking part of, you know, French Canada and Quebec, and how that fits in with our marketing.
Mm-hmm. We, yeah, as Spencer said, we haven't worked with someone as close on the border as your airport, but we do work with Traverse City Airport in Michigan, and they have a very large catchment area that absolutely goes into Canada. So when we did their air service development analysis, that their catchment area was definitely part of that, and the Canadian aspect of it as well.
And we have airports within 35 miles of us north and about 60 miles south. I mean, in all reality, we compete with that in one way or another. Will you be able to
look into how that dynamic works?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that's pretty, those two aspects that you just mentioned, the border and these other smaller airports your size that are fairly close. Yeah, no, that's very much part of your competitive market that you have to figure out some way to differentiate yourself from those other options, right?
Right.
So yes.
So Sam asked sort of what I was thinking was, is marketing direction and how do we fill the slots here, right? So I don't think you do marketing, right? Is that correct?
We definitely incorporate that into our strategic planning. So, we may not personally do it ourselves, but we have looked at it and analyzed it at several airports, and we definitely make recommendations in those areas. But typically, the airport itself then implements that, either through on-site staff or through, consultants or, outsourcing it in some way.
And I'm concerned that we need to ramp up our complaints faster than we already are too. So I'm looking for quick strike.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I lost that. You're looking to ramp up what?
I really hope that we can ramp up the number of passengers at our airport and how we go to get marketing. Particularly with the struggle with the border and all that, we have to figure out how to fill this.
Right. Yeah. No. That's a goal, right? For everybody, more passengers. Yeah.
Yeah. Passengers and like Jen talked about potential commerce.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's that too.
Yeah.
So will you also look into equipment? We just received some nice winter equipment at the airport to the tune of $800,000. But there's other areas we'd like to look at, and I was just informed that we started the meeting. You're familiar with Leo?
With what?
Leo, law enforcement?
The law enforcement group?
The fact that we have to have, because we're a Class 1 airport, we have to have law enforcement there.
Oh,
when, they're boarding.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't hear and I didn't understand the question. But yes, we definitely look at that. We look at law enforcement. We look at firefighting. We've done a lot of analysis in terms of the staffing, either in-house or contracted that out. We just did a very comprehensive study at Syracuse regarding their security staffing, and they're in the process of they currently contract it out, and they're in the process of bringing that in-house. So we did the study that allowed their board to make that decision to do that, and we're helping them with the implementation in terms of the state law and getting the legislation in place that will allow them to do that. We have looked at that also in Boise. We did a comprehensive organizational review in terms of their staffing. They were growing, Boise's situation, they were growing very quickly, and they didn't have the staff to sustain the passenger increases that they were getting. So we looked at all of that, and we did a comparison specifically regarding police and fire to see which comparable airports had those in-house and which were contracting them out, so that they could make those decisions about how to do that. Typically, that's a large cost for those services. So you have to really find out where the sweet spot is when it's cost savings to bring that in-house versus contracting it out.
I think when you see our contract we have now for Leo services, you'll probably faint.
So I'm sure it can be quite a sticker shock sometimes. I also just want to, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You mentioned that you're helping Syracuse. They want to bring it in-house. And you mentioned that they need legislation to make that happen. Is that a broad piece of legislation, or is that specific to Syracuse?
There are two pieces of legislation in New York State that address that, and other airports have applied and have that status. So the answer is both. Syracuse is not designated on the list that they need to be in that legislation. So it's specific to Syracuse in that sense, in that they have to apply and get legislators to approve to put them on the designated list. But it's broad and applies to everybody in that they are statutes, two statutes that exist, and any airport in theory could apply for the designated list. Right.
Because that's something that we're definitely looking at right now. So that really brings, you know, what you said there really brings home to what we're trying to accomplish. Two things: the cost of what we're paying the city. We feel we could do that in-house with our group, but we need to explore that to see. Like we need to explore that to see that you know, that it's just not an assumption that, you know, a feel that we have. We really need to know if that's something that's worth doing. But right now, we feel that way.
Yeah, we see this model that smaller airports who already don't have a large staff size, it's very frequent that they're contracted out. And often, you know, as I assume in your case, they're often owned by cities or counties, and then they just contract directly with their owner cities to provide that. And then it's a charge back to the city, right?
That's the uniqueness about us as a state agency. And our airport is located outside the city limits. So it has to do with the county and the county sheriff allowing the city police to have arrest privileges.
Right.
It's pretty complex, but it's costing us a lot of money, and there's other issues involved in it.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. At Syracuse, it was very complicated too, given the past contracts they had had and issues that they had had in the past. And a lot of the work that we did was to help them sort of work with the Syracuse Police Department that they are contracting with through a third party to get everybody on board for this initiative. So absolutely, I can understand the complicated politics behind some of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also just wanted to mention, you spoke about equipment, and I just wanted to let you know also at Minneapolis, MSP, when we looked at the GA airports, that was a significant consideration as well. So we looked at their equipment inventory and their needs, you know, obviously for snow removal particularly, and we made recommendations in terms of equipment they would need, and that was calculated into their forecasted budget for capital costs over, you know, the next 3 to 5 years. So that was also something we looked at and helped them analyze and to get on a life cycle replacement schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Patty, do you have some questions? Stephanie, I'm sure you got some questions.
Yes, going back to air service development, do you have good relationships with the different airlines, and are you familiar with their models?
We have a good broad knowledge of air service development because we've done this studies for several airports that we've worked with. But in general, when it comes to that kind of nitty-gritty relationships and meetings, we work very closely with the business partners of ours, Avalon, Pacific, and you know, that's stipulated in our scope contract that, you know, in terms of like really getting you a plan where that data is analyzed and you know, working with them to possibly set up meetings, etc., that we work with Avalon to do that on that detail. You know, how air service development you know, fits into your overall strategic goals and what you can use that with in terms of other revenue generation. Like that's sort of our expertise. And then that really detailed analysis, we work with Avalon for them to produce that for your specific airport. And we've worked very successfully with them on several projects. Very similar to this.
Now, do you do the data gathering for what we would need
to present to an airline, the market studies, the demographic, the catchment areas. Is that what you work on?
We work with the initial air service history that you've had and the employments that you've had, how long, like say take Allegiant for instance, when did Allegiant come, when did they leave, what were your employment figures, what were the routes, what was the frequency, what were the load factors. We often will do that sort of historical gathering of data and analysis and then work with Avalon, feed that into them, and they work that into their broader models of doing the data analysis. So it's a little bit of us and a little bit of them in terms of some of that.
When you mentioned it, it'd be anything additional that we request, other than, you know, some of the broad things that we would talk about that. That would be a task order to, that would be right, Penny. If we needed to go farther with another firm, you know, with you and another firm, that would just be a task order that you would give me a quote on, and we bring it to the board and see if they wanted to go through with that.
Right, and that's how we specifically write these retainer contracts. They are typically used, we come in, we work with you for, you know, 2 or 3 months, you know, get to know you, give our sort of overview of, you know, specific projects, issues, tasks, and then work on a task order off of that for a more in-depth analysis, right? Whatever it would be, the air service development, the revenue generation, bringing your police force in-house. Those are examples of all kinds of things that would be a task order that would come out of the retainer.
Yeah. What kind of unique revenue generating things have you come up with that aren't the typical things that you think of at an airport? What could be unique? Obviously, we haven't studied that yet, but what did you find at other airports that was unique just to them that was able to create revenue?
Yeah, well, we have all sorts of examples. Yeah, do you want to start with some, Spencer? You can start with some, I'll start some.
One off the top of my head that I see as a really up and coming trend right now. I know from your website, your parking is currently free, but if that were to change in the future, one thing that airports are starting to do is develop reserve parking. So they would have up close, like preferable parking that they can book along with their ticket directly from your website, so that they know in advance they're going to have a parking spot. I don't know what your parking capacity is and what it's like, but that is definitely an issue for a lot of airports as far as their overall capacity. So by being able to develop that in there, it's additional revenue for the airport and also ease of mind for the passengers. So that's one example I have for you.
And we did those sorts of parking analysis both at a very small airport like Traverse City and at a larger airport like Dayton. So yeah, parking absolutely is, and we have done surveys and we do the data analysis about, again, what is that sweet spot in terms of what the highest price you can charge without scaring people away. So we've done that sort of work. Concessions is another area. I noticed in the marketing plan that you sent, which I think seemed like it was from around 2016, but at that time it said there was only vending machines in terms of concessions. So we've done, again, Traverse City has mostly vending machines. It has one small on-site restaurant. So we've worked with that. Of course, of larger airports, we've done very comprehensive revenue optimization studies in terms of concessions. Obviously, that wouldn't apply to you, but we've looked at that. We've looked at non-aeronautical revenue. You look at the property that you hold. That is a large trend in the industry. More and more airports are looking at their land as opportunity to bring in money that's not related to airlines. Obviously, air service development, increased in routes, frequency, load factors, that increases, but also in terms of hangars, landing fees, rents. There are just multiple ways to look at whatever activities that you are engaging in to see what opportunities you're taking advantage of now, and maybe others that you haven't looked at in detail in terms of the analysis or thought of, that we could help steer you in that direction. I'll go back to the Dayton study. Dayton hired us because they had $1 million shortfall in their budget, and they hired us to come in specifically to do a comprehensive review of all of their activities, and just to come up with revenue generation ideas. And so parking was a large part of that study, because they had an off-site competitor who was really undercutting their parking. So we devised several strategies to either work with that competitor or buy that competitor outright. But as you know, every airport is different, unique, and so we would have to be more familiar with your operations and what opportunities, what you have now that could be taken advantage of in a different or better way.
And Jennifer, I think earlier you had mentioned regarding FedEx and just cargo, and one of the things I read about your area that seems very unique to me, and we'd have to look into more regarding non-aeronautical revenue, is it sounds like there are a fair amount of Canadians and companies that use storage facilities in your city that is kind of a hub for distributing. Is that true?
Yes.
Is there quite a bit of that activity then?
Well, quite a bit is relative, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think they're significant given our population. I think that, I would say there's a significant number. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something like I would like to look into further regarding the non-aeronautical portion of our research. I'm not in-depthly familiar with it yet, but from some initial reading I've done, that kind of popped in my mind as an idea. But we'll have to see as we go into this a little bit further.
What we also have come across with multiple airports, particularly on the smaller side, where their contracts with the FBOs that provide services are not very advantageous to the airport itself. So, again, we've looked at what industry standards are, and if you have a contract with an FBO to provide services, there should be certain things that you are getting out of that lease.
We are the FBO.
And then in cases you are the FBO. So there are ways to still look at the operations and to see if you are optimizing them, right?
I've been interested in particular with Amazon, as you know, they've expanded in the last year or so, and they're looking for more distribution points. Is there, you have any thoughts or any expertise in something like that? I feel that an Amazon distribution center would be very advantageous to this area, whether or not, from an airport standpoint, of course, bringing in the cargo itself, if they're flying it in, as opposed to driving it in, and our organization as a whole, as a warehouse center for that kind of thing. I think there's an opportunity there, but I don't know the president of Amazon personally, so I have no in. Right. So, I see the Amazons of this world really growing at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, no, I mean, we are working with an airport that confidentially is working on a contract with Amazon. So we didn't have anything to do with that, but they are asking us, as they have with other leases in the past, to look at the lease and make suggestions, right? So that is something that we do, is lease negotiation, lease review, to make sure with any contract that you would have, whether it's with a second FBO or if you decide to not have your FBO in-house, but to contract it out, but to make sure those leases are advantageous to the airport. So that's definitely something that we look at, tenant leases, et cetera. But in terms of Amazon itself, we don't have any direct connection with them, but we have worked with airports that are negotiating with them.
Okay. As far as, development on the airport and infrastructure, do you have experience with, airports who need to develop their infrastructure and their facility itself?
Mhm. Yeah, that's something that we have looked at, capital plans. We've been a part of several master plan update committees. We've done, like Spencer, you were directly involved with that at Syracuse. But in general, yes, we have experience with that.
Yeah, a lot of capital improvement plans and outlining that. Rochester, New York, actually, we worked very closely with on their grant that they received to do a huge expansion there a couple of years back. And we were very close with them in developing that program along with their engineering consultants as well, that, you know, develop all the drawings and everything else needed to make that happen.
Mhm.
So, what do you wanna, okay, anybody else? Questions? Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I think, yeah, next step would be, I would, Stephanie and I would talk about the agenda with Penny, and, we picked some dates later in the month, I think. Penny, is that doable, so that we get something in this month?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yep.
And then, you know, I basically used your template, but there may be some things that, the one issue I don't know about, bringing, this, at this time, we'll try, but city leaders and business, stakeholders, might be tough to get them all together at once, but you might have an idea of, the best way to go about that.
Sure. And, you know, again, that's just a suggestion. If it's better that, you know, we meet internally and just, you know, talk amongst ourselves, that's fine. And then we could meet with external, you know, external business people, stakeholders and city people, you know, at the next on-site meeting. So sure. Yeah.
We
don't have to-
to go.
Yeah.
That fits in with, the way things are working around here, so that'll be good.
Yeah.
So anything else?
I don't have any. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, well, one, we're very excited to be working with you. So, you know, thank you for trusting us to help you, you know, with your operations there. And yeah, we just want to, you know, get some of that background data so we can start to get to know you. And we want to get up there so we can see the place and, you know, meet the people and just get a sense of who you are and where you want to go and how we can best help you. So.
Very good. I would say one thing too, and you'll find this, and I found it out just trying to look for the materials you asked for. We're pretty scattershot with everything we do. It's like I can't go to one place, or a board member can go to one area or something to just and do it by sequentially by time and know, you know, what were past master plans and things like that. I would definitely ask for a recommendation on how we should set up, you know, basically our communications and our information going forward, so that, you know, we've got something that we work off of, and we've got it organized, and also we have that information as what you've seen with other airports, that it's just tough to get, you know, information that you're looking for, and I would definitely be looking for some kind of help with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And please know that that is not an uncommon situation. So several of the smaller airports that we've worked with, especially those small airports that have small cities that own them, So yeah, often this information is in different places or it's not methodically tracked. And that's definitely one of the first recommendations that we make. Here's the kind of data that you should be tracking. Ideally, it should all be supervised by one person who knows how to access it. Very typically, we find that financial information is difficult to get because it's in various parts of the city and not necessarily on site at the airport. So you are in a similar boat with many other airports.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's good, but not good.
But we would recommend moving forward that, yeah, you start, yeah, somebody get really familiar with Excel sheets, yeah.
If you don't have anything more, then Stephanie and I will reach out to you, Penny and Spencer, on dates and fine tuning our agenda there for our kickoff meeting. If that sounds good to you right now.
Yep, that sounds
Thank you
great.
very much.
Yeah, and it's
Thank you.
very nice to meet all of you. Yeah, we're excited to work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, do we have any other? Everybody's done, so,
Right here.
so do we have any other discussion on this, or are we set?
Well, actually, after having that discussion, I feel more comfortable with, I think, what we want to do, what we need to do, and their capability. Yeah. They both seem very knowledgeable.
Anything else? Sounds like you guys got the plan.
Yeah. No, I just kind of kept it to this meeting. There was some things that I could look at Penny, and we were talking about facilities. That's what we kind of just said, well, this is the airport facility meeting, so we're step into that. So really, we don't have any other, nothing right off.
Okay, so
Is that true, Patty?
The only thing I was thinking, I know, was the possibility of the tenant leaving and the building that would possibly be black.
Talking about.
What?
Oh, yeah, well, not, that should be, that stuff, just because it's involved with somebody else's business. And,
So do we have any other, do we need?
yeah, it wouldn't be about it.
I'm moving.
I'll second.
There'll be no,
No business.
no action.
Okay, so with that, we need to go online.
We are now.
Okay. So we are back in,
Mhm.
we are back in session, and, is there any other business to come before the facilities? We've had no action from our. No, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll
I'll second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Adjourn.